Bernie Sanders can beat Hillary, and I'm not saying he will, but he certainly can. That is, he can beat her and pledge delegates. In other words, he could force her into a position where of the delegates who are elected, he has the majority, and she could only then compensate and be nominated by a top-heavy vote of the superdelegates who nobody elected, who are ex officio members. Unlike in the Republican convention, where they have to vote the way their state wants, in the Democratic convention, they can do whatever they want. But look at the math. It's fairly simple. There are 2,000 delegates to be elected in the Democratic nominating process, 1,977. Bernie just carried Wisconsin by 13 points. The delegates are selected proportionate to the vote. If Bernie carries the remaining vote by 13 points, you do the math. 13% of 2,000 is 260 delegates, and Bernie is now 252 delegates behind Hillary. So it's perfectly possible for him to do that. He just has to replicate what he did in Wisconsin in a lot of states. New York might be difficult, but Pennsylvania might be, but Bernie has a pattern of being behind in these states, and then as he campaigns there, catching up. And there's no reason to be sure that that won't happen in a lot of other states. Now, the legal impact would be that Hillary would still have a majority because of the 500 superdelegates. She has 469, and poor Bernie has just 31. But the superdelegates can change their mind anytime they like. And if you talk about the concept of having Bernie win state after state after state, he's already won in a row Utah, Alaska, Hawaii, Washington State, and Wisconsin. And if he keeps adding victories to that and Hillary doesn't win any place, like he wins 15 more states by reasonably decent margins, enough to be able to affect the delegate count, then Hillary will be in very bad shape at that convention. The superdelegates will have to vote for her knowing that, number one, their state voted against her, and number two, that she's lost like 15 straight primary fights, which is not very good. And those superdelegates are free to vote as they wish. Now, of course, the backdrop of this is that if Hillary loses the elected delegates and tries to win with superdelegates, all hell will break loose. You'll have a situation reminiscent of 1968 at the Democratic Convention. And believe me, I know from Hillary, from my time with her, 1968 looms very large in her thinking, and her fear of that was very apparent when she was talking about the convention of 1996, where her husband was renominated, which I worked with her on. So it is very possible that this thing could go down to the wire, and it's very possible that Bernie wins. Now, I do a podcast every week. You can get the link that's on this video, or we send out a separate emailing for it, or go to podcast1.com or itunes.com and give it a listen. It goes through in great depth what's going on in New York and in Pennsylvania and in each of these states on the way to the nomination. So if you're really a junkie for this stuff, go listen to it. You'll get all the news you need. Thanks a lot.